Welcome, everybody. I'm Jeff Pleskac, Secretary of the CEB-US. Just wanted to do a little informal thing on just getting ready to field trial. Try to answer some of the questions you guys got out there. Sherry was kind enough to volunteer some of her time to do a short presentation. Sherry Niesar has been competing and judging dogs for not too long of time, but long enough to be tenured. She's basically a head judge in the UKC, and has got a lot of knowledge and is a very good teacher. So I'm going to let her take over for the presentation, and then there'll be some question and answer as we go. Want to do all the question and answer after?
Yeah.
Okay. So take notes. Take notes if you guys have something in the slide or whatever. Let us know. So take it away, Sherry.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. First of all, I want to thank everybody for showing up and sharing their Wednesday evening with me. This is the first time we've done a virtual handlers clinic, and so it's kind of an experiment. So please be kind. The presentation that I have put together, there's something for everybody, I think. We're going to start out with a basic description of what you can expect to find if you attend a field trial, things you can bring to make your life easier, and things you can do to make you have a better experience at the trial. Then we'll go through the different events and expectations there. And then finally, some things that you can do to prepare your dog for the field trial. Now, this is by no means a training seminar. That is a whole nother topic. This is just kind of a brief overview. So if you have training questions, I'm going to refer you to other people, or we can talk at another time. But for now, I am going to start. I've got this presentation, and I did this because you're going to want to look at pictures of dogs rather than me, and it helps keep me on track. So first of all, I want to thank the CEB-US for sponsoring this. This is our first time ever doing a virtual handlers clinic, and so I hope you get something out of it. First of all, when you go to a field trial, a lot of people, if it's your first time out, you don't know what to expect. You see that it goes from 7 to well into the afternoon. When do you arrive? Well, tip number 1, arrive early. That way you're not late for anything, and you have an opportunity to listen to all the instructions from the field trial chairman and the judges. They'll give you tips, and they'll let you know where to go. During this instruction period, a running order is usually passed out. If you have enough dogs, each event is broken into 2 or more fields, and so those fields are called batteries. So make a note of which field and the location in the running order where your dogs are. That way you're not late for an event. There's nothing worse than waiting on a handler, and we've seen it where judges have had to wait over an hour, and that does not end well for that day. So things to bring along. I like to bring a vest. A vest is perfect for carrying all your extra gear. You don't have to worry about stuffing things in your pockets, carrying things around. It's just, there's lots of places to put things. Always bring a leash. Now, I know all of our dogs are very well trained, and they all heel without exception until you get to the field trial, and then anything could happen. So I recommend you bring a leash. You'll be expected to show up at the beginning of your run with your dog on your leash, and then when you're done, you'll need to leash your dog and return to the staging area. Bring water for your dog and for yourself. Now, it's hard to imagine this time of year you're going to need water. In North Dakota, we're facing wind chill advisories, but a lot of times our field trials are done when it's much warmer out. And so you and your dog are both going to need to be hydrated. So things to bring along: a vest, a leash, water for your dog. And if you're running in a wild trial, you'll need a starter pistol or a gun that shoots blanks. Some people want to know how to dress for the weather. Check your weather apps so you know what's forecasted, and always be prepared for just about anything. I like to start out with a hat with a brim. It keeps the sun out of my eyes, a light jacket, light pants. Be prepared to layer depending on the weather. I like good boots for walking, generally with Gore-Tex or rubber boots. You never know what the field conditions are going to be, and you might get wet. So it's nice to have dry feet. And then I always pack a rain jacket regardless of the forecast. I like the frog togs. You can get them at Walmart. They're very inexpensive. They pack into a small Ziploc bag. You can throw them in the back of your vest, and they're very lightweight. So if it does start to sprinkle on you, you can pull that out. It's no big deal. And if it's cold or windy, you can put them on, and they're nice windbreaks. More tips. So with any field trial, either open or gun, you're going to run for 15 minutes. That's the length of your run. So when you get into position, introduce yourself to the judge. Say, hi, my name's Sherry Niesar. I'm here to run my dog Blue. This does a couple things. First of all, if you've never met this judge before, they can put a name and a dog together. They can also look at their judging cards and make sure that they have the right judging card for you and your dog. That way your scores are recorded on the right card. Secondly, stay on the course. So each field trial is laid out in a course to maximize the opportunity for everybody to get a fair run. And so if you walk across the course or two courses, as the case may be, you run the risk of ruining another competitor's opportunity. So stay on the course. When leaving the course after you run, regardless of how it went, follow instructions to not muddy the course. Be a good sportsman or woman. It's easy to be frustrated if things don't go well, but please show some grace. And then lastly, thank your judge for their time. UKC judges are not reimbursed. They're not compensated. They're there as volunteers, and they're there because they love the sport, they love dogs, and they enjoy the handlers. So please thank them. They will appreciate it. So you're still a little confused, you're unclear on the rules, where you're supposed to go. There's a lot of questions for first-time handlers, and you just need to get things clarified. Ask questions. There's lots of people there to help you. Ask your fellow handlers. There may be some experienced hands in the field, so ask them your questions. Usually there's a field marshal that keeps everybody organized. Ask them, or ask other trial workers. If you're still not convinced you have the right answer, your judge is there. Ask your judge the question. Be cheerful about your question. This goes a long way to having a happy judge. Remember, as judges, we've been in the field a long time, training dogs, trialing dogs, testing dogs, and we have seen or done just about everything, and we're happy to help. Remember, we want you to succeed. Now, here's the thing. As a handler, it's your job to present your dog in the best manner possible. Imagine you're taking your dog and your judge on a 15-minute hunt. You want to show your dog off. You want him to do the best. That's your job. The judge is only there to judge what they see during those 15 minutes. All right. Open class. Open class is for finished dogs. This means the dog will hold the point until the handler releases the dog for retrieve or if no bird is flushed. To compete in an open class event, your dog must be at least 1 year old. Generally, minimal commands are used for retrieving, to direct, and to come. In the open class, if you're in a liberated trial, the dog has to retrieve to hand or hands reach. So to place in an open event, your dog must point spontaneously, not coerced, no commands. It just does it. It has to be staunch. It has to be steady through flush, shot, and fall. And it must retrieve to hand or hands reach. If you're running in a brace, which is 2 dogs, your dog must back or honor spontaneously if the other dog goes on point. And in order to score the point, there has to be a gunfire. And the reason for this is we have to determine both steadiness and if your dog is gun shy. So I do have a video of open, solo, liberated, and I'd like to share that with you. It's one thing to talk about these points. It's another thing to really see them. So if you don't mind, I am going to share this video with you guys. So we've got a very confident handler here. The dog is doing a great job searching the field, hunting. Okay, so we're going to break this down piece by piece so you can see exactly what happened. We've got a point that's spontaneous. It's not coerced and it's not commanded.
So one thing I want to chime in and say is that in a liberated trial, there'll be gunners and they will be flushing the bird. You're not responsible for shooting your own birds. In a wild trial, you'll need to flush your own bird. If you have questions, always ask the judge who's flushing the birds. And if you're in charge of it and you want to get up there, and you can direct the gunners on where to be and you flush the bird. But for the most part, they'll flush the bird. So
that's true, Jeff. Thanks. And the last thing I want to point out is here we don't want to watch Pepper. Is in an open trial, that dog doesn't do anything until you tell it to, as far as the retrieve and the delivery to hand. These are finished dogs. So I think that kind of breaks it down kind of nice. One thing I don't remember if I did say or not at the beginning, we talk about using a starter pistol in wild trials. The rules say you can use a shotgun as long as you're firing blanks. So keep that in mind. That is an option if you do attend a wild trial. So let's look at the gun class. Gun dog is a hunting dog. There's nothing wrong with having a gun dog. I've had some great gun dogs and I wouldn't trade them for anything. Gun dog must be 6 months or older to compete, not 5 months and 29 days, but 6 months. The point is judged until the bird moves. The rule said flushed and lifts, but if the bird starts walking away, if it lifts a wing, we are done judging the point. If the bird flushes without the help of the dog, and the dog breaks after the bird moves, the dog will not be penalized. In general, more commands are allowed than in the open class. So just a few more hands on on the dog for this event class. So gun placement requirements. Your dog has to point, and it must point spontaneously, non-coerced, non-commanded, must be staunch. It has to stay until the bird moves. It can receive a slight encouragement to remain steady, and it must retrieve within 15 feet of the handler, 5 yards or 15 feet. If you are running gun braces, it has to back the pointing dog. It must have a gun fired to score the point, and it can't be gun shy. So I do have a video here of gun dogs. The handler on this one is not quite as confident, nor is she as good a shot, but it illustrates the point of a gun dog. So this is our old girl, Foxy. I missed that bird, by the way. So we're going to break this one down step by step again, just like we did in the open class. She's doing a nice hunt, searching for birds. Points with no command. We could do a single whoa, and that would be acceptable in the gun class and not put you out of contention for placement. So she didn't move. She's made the steadiness requirement. This one, the dog is allowed to break because we're in the gun class. So we do have one more gun solo that I want to show you. Foxy, again, she's already on point. Our handler is going to go in and make that flush. Okay, so let's take a look at what happened here. So the flush occurred, and Foxy repositioned to get a look at the drop. So, and that's okay. We want an intelligent reposition if it helps you collect the game. And then she does a nice retrieve. So one thing that is not in the rule books, you notice at the end, our handler got the bird and then he loved up his dog. There is nothing wrong with doing that in the field trial, and I encourage it. Your dog's going to be riled up after making that retrieve. You want to de-escalate the situation, allow them to kind of relax a little bit before you move on to the next bird. So let's look at the difference between wild and liberated. Jeff touched on that a little bit. Liberated is our trials where the birds that you're hunting are raised birds, such as bob white-chuck or a pheasant, and they are actually planted in the field by our bird planters at an assorted range throughout the course. The birds are shot for the dog to retrieve in a liberated trial. We have gunners for that. The handlers don't have to worry about shooting their own birds. And then all people on the field are required to wear orange for visibility. And this picture is kind of faded, but trust me, everybody actually is in orange. In a wild trial, They're conducted on fields where there are wild birds. Now, I know in some places that's not an option, but out west, we are lucky enough to have some wild birds to field trial on. During a wild trial, no birds are shot. And so there is no retrieving requirement in a wild trial. And lastly, when a bird flushes after the point, the handler must fire a shot with a blank or a starter pistol to demonstrate steadiness. And in this picture, I don't know if you can tell on your screen, but the handler, his dog's on point, he's going in for the flush, and he's got his starter pistol out, and he's ready to fire that shot.
From a judge's perspective, if you're in doubt, fire a shot. It will normally tell you, but always have that pistol and always fire the shot, even if you're not sure, because we can't judge it unless there's a shot. So that's something we always come across, especially on new handlers.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the moment and forget what to do. And in fact, I had an experienced handler, and he was so amazed at his dog on point, he forgot to fire the shot. And in the end, I said, "Hey, shoot!" And he shot, and then we were able to score the dog. But it's easy to get lost in the moment. So the judge will help you if they can. So let's talk about the WRT, or water retrieve test. It's relatively new to the UKC pointing dog program. It's open to all dogs, all pointing dogs. Dogs have to be 6 months of age at the time of the test. They have to be UKC registered. The thing about the WRT is if they are unable to complete the requirements of the test, they are not failed, they are just deferred. So they never get a fail on their record. There is no limit on the number of times you can enter a dog in the WRT. So at least until you pass. So there's that. What happens in the WRT is you line up your dog at a pond's edge. We have either ducks, or people have used chuckers. They're freshly killed. There's a shot. The bird is flung into the air, into the water. There's a shot fired. The handler sends their dog into the water to make the retrieve. So when they make the retrieve, the dog must retrieve the bird completely out of the water. The dog has to swim, so it has to float. It can't walk on the bottom. It is preferred that the bird is delivered to hand, but it doesn't have to be. It has to be within 15 feet of the handler. Also, the retrieve has to be made so that the dog is completely out of the water. It is also permissible for the handler to make a reasonable reposition to encourage delivery. So if your dog's standing at the edge of the water and he's not out of the water, if you back up a few steps to encourage that dog to get out of the water, that is acceptable. Likewise, if you want to go right or left, that is also very cool. The other event we have is the Test of Natural Ability, or TAN. It's open to all UKC registered pointing dogs. Dogs that compete in this have to be less than 3 years of age at the time of the test. If dogs have placed in another event with a score of pass or higher, they're not eligible to compete in the TAN. Just like with the WRT, no dog fails the TAN. They are just deferred into a later date, and there's no limit on the number of times a dog can be entered. So what does a dog need to do to place? They must spontaneously point game and hold for a short period, 3 seconds. So 1, 1,000, 2, 2,000, 3, 3,000s. They have to hunt, which means they actually have to search. They must hunt with the handler. So, you're working as a team. And lastly, there's a shot fired when the bird is flushed. And so we have to determine if the dog is gun shy or not. This little dog actually caught the bobwhite during the TAN, and he was pretty proud of his prize. A quick word about electronic retrieval and recovery devices. This is a new rule put forth by UKC last year. The sole purpose of using such a device is to assist the handler in finding a dog that may be lost, and it is no longer in judgment. In all my time of judging, we have never lost a dog during a field trial. But this is a new rule. It came about when UKC bought the American Field. Rules that are associated with this specifically, first and foremost, the host club will decide if electronic devices will be allowed. If they are allowed, it's to be stated in the field trial premium, and then it is the handler's responsibility to furnish that device. The device can only be 9 ounces or less, and that includes both the collar and the transmitter. The handler cannot carry the receiver during his run. That piece of the equipment is given to a judge or a person designated by the host club. The receiver may only be activated once judgment has been concluded. And lastly, while competing, a dog shall wear no more than 2 collars if electronic retrieval devices are used. So in the rule book, it says you can only have 1 collar. The only exception to that is with electronic devices. I know some people like to run a strike collar in addition to their regular collar. That is not allowed. So how do you prepare for a field trial? And to some of you, I looked at who's out there and your experienced handlers, and you know these things, but a lot of names I have not heard before, and so maybe this will be helpful, or maybe a good reminder for some of us. So first and foremost, expose your dog to birds while they're liberated. If you're not in a place where you have access to wild birds, and I know a lot of people are not, get some birds for training. Teach your dog what you want them to do. Refresh them if they're out of practice. It makes sense. You wouldn't send your child off to take their spelling test without studying the spelling words. Why would you expect your dog to do well in a field trial without preparing them? Allow your dog to run off leash. It seems logical, but there are a lot of places in the world where dogs are not off leash. And so they need to know how to do this. They need to know how to hunt somewhat independently. And so you need to be able to take them off the leash. Expose them to gunfire. Their first experience should not be at a field trial. That way you can control what happens and how they react. Teach them to come when called. I have been in many cases where dogs have run off. They're not lost. They've just run off. They've got their first whiff of bird and they're not coming back for anything. So teach your dog to come. And a final word on the WRT, teach them to swim and retrieve in the water. So the WRT is not the first day that this happens. You probably wonder where I'm coming from on this, but at a field trial a few years ago, there were a number of handlers that showed up for the WRT and their dogs had never swam. And you know how I could tell? Because, you know, when you teach a dog to swim, they swim vertically and they're goofy. And half these dogs were doing the vertical swim. They didn't know how to retrieve the bird in the water. And so they were deferred.
One other note on that for the WRT is reach out and find out what bird they're using for it. If they're using a duck, do your best to get a duck. It does not taste the same to a dog as a chucker, as a quail. So I've seen a lot of dogs swim right out, look at the duck, and swim right back.
Good point, Jeff.
And that's happened to me. So make sure you introduce your dog to whatever bird they're going to do it and get it wet, because it's going to be, that's what they're going to smell.
It's different. Yeah, it's funny to see how they retrieve those birds after they've been wet. They'll grab a wingtip or head or a foot. It's just kind of hilarious. So if you have questions, you know, reach out to people like me, Jeff. There's a lot of judges out there. I know Pete Wax is on this call as well, and there's probably others. Ask them questions. You know, they're familiar with the rules and they can help you around certain issues. If you have a local pro trainer, talk to them. They'll help you train, that you can learn from them. They can be your mentor. That's how my husband and I learned. We had a problem dog and we got a hold of our local pro trainer and we trained with him and he taught us how to train. Join a local training club. A lot of the UKC clubs hold training days, as do AKC clubs. We're members of NAVDA as well, and part of their whole mission is to teach people how to train their dog. So they're all great resources. So don't look any of them. Don't forget to reach out to them. I've used all three for different events. Websites, UKC and the CEB-US. There's lots of good resources on the UKC website. The field trial rules are on there. It's in a PDF. You can download it. You can put it on your devices, and you'll have access to it if you have questions about the field trials. And so that's pretty much all I have to say. And so questions. This is our Q&A section, and we'll entertain questions, Jeff and I, and Pete might be able to jump on too if there's a question for him. But before I turn it over, I just want to thank everybody for showing up, and I sure appreciate you being here.
We'll open it up to questions at this time. Does anyone have any questions?
Very great presentation. I'll start a question. What if your dog goes on point and you can't produce a bird? What happens at that point? And two, if you're in a liberated trial, what happens if the gunner misses or the bird flies at the judge?
Okay, so question number one, if you can't produce a bird, that's called a non-productive point. After pretty substantial search, the judge will have you move on, and they'll make a note of that in their notes. In a liberated trial, if they produce a bird and they're able to do the sequence with the exception of the shot and the retrieve, if you're not able to find another bird on your run, they will do a setup retrieve at the end of the day. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, I have a question about scoring. Are all the tests pass or fail, or are they ranked, or do you get a number? How does that work?
So they're not ranked. Every judge kind of does their own thing. We have a placement series. So think of it as first, second, and third, and then pass. Our nomenclature is CAG or CAC, depending on which category. The CAC or CAG is first. The RCAG or RCAC, excuse me, it gets confusing even for the judges. That is our second place. We have an excellent, which is the third place, and then we have a pass, which is a pass, which means you have successfully completed everything, but other dogs did it better. And so when we're looking at our dogs in our field, you are competing. It's a competition. So the dog that does it best gets the first place. And it's not necessarily quantity. So if your dog is out there and they're burning up the field and they've had 3 or 4 fines, but they're kind of sloppy, and I've got another dog that's coming along and he is crisp and he's exciting to watch, and there's not a mistake there, the dog with a couple of fines or one or even one fine is probably going to place higher than the sloppy dog. Does that answer your question, Sydney?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, Sherry. It's Kim. Hi, Jeff. I have a question about a youth handler handling a dog in the gun dog class. If there's ever a situation where the judges could shoot the blank, or if that youth handler has to shoot the blank gun.
Generally with a youth handler, we're kinder because they're less experienced. And so, here's the deal. If they're able to physically shoot the gun, we prefer that they do so. If they need a reminder to do that, we will do that.
Okay.
If not, I'm sure we could make accommodations for them.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Kind of maybe further to that point, can you have friends or a family member join you in the field to walk with you if they're not participating?
That is up to the judge, and make sure they have the proper tire on. So if it is a liberated trial, the judge says it's okay, then as long as they have blazed orange, then yeah, usually that's okay. Sometimes wild trials, it's a little different because you don't want that many people out in a wild bird field. So it makes a gallery kind of tough, but it's usually up to the judge and the trial committee. So
I'll just add to that a little bit. When we have a gallery following along, it's important that they stay behind the judge and the handlers. We don't want them getting into the mix of the field, and it creates confusion for especially an inexperienced handler and the dog. So just if they are allowed in the field, then stay behind the judge and the handler and the gunners.
Sherry, can you speak about a barrage?
No, of course I will. So what happens, if you recall in the beginning, before I got my screen shared, we talked about batteries. And so, for example, if we have 20 open dogs show up at a field trial, they enter. 20 dogs is too many for one field. It's too many for one judge. I've done it before they changed the rules. So what they would do is they would divide that into 2 groups of 10. And so within each battery, we can have full placements. We can have the first, the second, the third, and the pass. And so if you end up with 2 first places, or the CAC or the CAGs, then those 2 dogs would run off or go into what's called a barrage. And since they have earned the first place in their battery, we don't need to see that they can point or retrieve or do any of that. What we want to do is we want to see dogs go out, take a nice cast, and cross the field. If they start goofing off and get distracted, they'll be disqualified. So what happens is there's a what do I want to say, Jeff? A chairman of the barrage is appointed to make that call, and we usually have a panel of judges. So if Jeff and I are judging it, and I've got a field, and I've got a placement, and Jeff's got a placement, you know, we want to have an impartial person on there just for propriety's sake to make sure that we select the correct dog. And then once the winner is determined, that winner is announced right there on the field.
and that can happen in both the open class and gun class. So if you have more than one battery at your event and you win, don't leave. So stick around, because most likely you'll be running in one, and that has to be run in a field that doesn't have birds in it. So sometimes we will move to a different location. So don't leave.
Yeah, that's important, because a lot of times if you're first or second in the running order and you've done well, stick around, because the judge has to see all the dogs before they can decide who gets first place.
And just a note on first and second placements, there may not always be a first and second place. There may be passes and no first and second place. I guess I was taught that if you're going to pass, you've checked the boxes. But if you're going to place, you better wow me. I'm going to want to put your dog in my truck. So it's exceeding those expectations that gets the placements. So like I said, not every class will have a winner or second place. So
yeah, as a very good friend of mine, Butch Nelson, says, if you're going to place a dog, you better want to take it home. He better excite you.
One thing that when you're there, you're in the trial, find out the directions of how you're going to be up next. So some trials, they'll have you follow along. So you'll have your dog on a leash and you'll fall behind the competitor that's in front of you. And then once they're done with their run, you would be called up. So, or there's other times that you'll be in an on deck area. that they'll call you up. So just, there's a couple different ways to do it. Find out from the field marshal or someone there that's how they're doing it, so you're ready. Like Sherry said at the beginning, nobody wants to keep a judge waiting, because if that's your first impression, they're going to be mad. If they're standing out in the rain or standing out in the hot sun. So just something to keep the trial moving for everybody.
I'd like to go back to Shooter's question real quick. You asked about a non-productive point. One non-productive point is not a big deal, but if we have 3 points that are non-productive or false points, the dog is disqualified.
How do you earn a title?
Jeff?
So your titles are earned. So in the gun class, you have a hunt title, which is earned by having 3 passes. So you'll have 3 passes in the gun class, you get a hunt. To get a gun title, you have to have at least 1 win and 2 passes, or 2 second places and 2 passes. We'll get you that. You can have a first, a second, and a pass and still get your title, but you have to have at least, if you have a win, you have to have 2 other titles, or 2 other placements, or 2 other passes. In the open class, you'll get your trialer title by having the same thing. You have to have a win and 2 passes, or 2 seconds and 2 passes. When you get up into the champions and grand champions, then it's based on what type of trial you're in, whether it's wild or liberated, and how many different judges you've been seen under. And that's all under wins. You have to have wins in order to get that. So.
Thank you.
If for some reason you're at a field trial and you do not understand what happened with your dog, you thought they were in contention for a placement, you thought maybe they won, and when it comes time for ribbons, that was not the case. Go up and ask your judge that day. They're happy to share their reasons why your dog was selected or was not selected. If you wait after that, they will not remember. That's just, it's just the way it is. If you dispute the judgment of the judges, there is a process through UKC where you can try to get that judgment reviewed. And so UKC will gather all the information from the judges, from the gunners, and from you as a handler, and they will submit that to the judge committee, and they will make a final decision on your complaint.
This is Chip Heidinger. Can I add a comment?
Yeah.
So I was at a trial one time and totally expected a ribbon for the dog and did not get it. And the next morning I was actually helping with the trial and was talking to the judge, and he totally is like, no, that dog was up for contention to win. How did I not give it a ribbon? So judges make mistakes, so don't be ashamed, and talk to him, and he fixed it that night. I mean, he's like, I'll take care of it, don't worry about it. But so it was totally a dog that I thought had placed or gotten a pass, at least got excluded. And I talked to the judge, and he went back his notes. He's like, no, that dog totally passed. And so he fixed that. So you definitely bring it up if you have questions. I mean, bring it up amicably and be friendly about it. But, say, hey, I thought that dog did well. Can you tell me what happened? And, and what had happened is he had awarded that ribbon to a different dog on accident. The judge had.
That's absolutely right, Chip. We're juggling a lot of pieces of paper out there, and every once in a while something gets missed. So it does happen. Remember, the judge's ruling is final. And so the only way to change it is to talk to the judge or go through that complaint process with UKC.
And we understand for a lot of you, it's a learning experience. So don't be afraid to ask. Sometimes when it's fresh in your mind, we can't discuss a placement out there in the field, but you know, we can discuss what we saw, and you know, that clears some stuff up for you now and help for your training later on, what you need to work on. So we've all been competitors, and so we understand. We've been in your shoes. We know what you're, you know, we've had dogs disappoint us. We've had ourselves disappoint us. So don't be afraid to ask. Otherwise, it's not fun to leave there upset and angry and not knowing what happened. So we want everyone to be, you know, have the best chance we can. We usually give the benefit of the doubt to the dog.
And I'll be the first one to tell you, I am a terrible handler. I'm a nervous handler, not a terrible handler. I get way too excited. I should wear tennis shoes because I sprint across the field. And I think the judges want to put a leash on me. So I understand what it is to be excited. You know, everybody's passionate about this. This is your dog out there, your friend, your buddy. And win, lose, or draw, it's an emotional day for everybody. So know that we are there in your corner, and we are there to help.
And listen to the judge. If he tells you to water your dog, whether it's -30 or 130, water your dog. There's a reason he's telling you. So check your, you know, if he's telling you to do something, do it. He's trying to help you. If he's suggesting to go to a different part of the field, there's a reason why. So just make sure you listen to them and heed their advice.
Quick question, where's the best place to like keep up to date when trials are happening? Is it through Facebook on the CEB, or is it the UKC website?
So the CEB-US has a lovely website that Kim put together for us, and it has an events and calendar page. That's a very up-to-date spot. The CEB-US has a Facebook page. The local clubs have Facebook pages, as well as UKC under the hunting ops pointing dog page. They have a calendar as well. So just check them all. If there's a place you want to go, get in contact with that local club. They'll put you on a mailing list, and they'll send out information as trials are scheduled.
Awesome.
And our other host, Sherry Niesar, also has the Whoa Post. That also is a very good resource for that. So if you don't get that, it's an email newsletter. Reach out to Sherry and she'll get you on the list.
Yep, there's no charge. Lots of good information, and yeah, we'd love to have you if you'd like to receive it.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
When we have dogs earn titles now with the UKC, and this is maybe a little higher level question, do we have to prove to the UKC now that they earned a title? Or are they supposed to be sending, I'm just going to say I haven't gotten several titles that I should have had for dogs.
So
Is that
Chip,
everybody's experience?
yeah, no, well, first of all, it's UKC, but secondly, they did change it. You do have to submit and request your titles.
I did not know that. Thank you.
Yeah, and here's another caveat. The form, and I don't know if they fixed it yet, but the form that they have on their website has the wrong email address. So, because I submitted Blue's trialer title, and I waited forever, and I got a hold of UKC, and I said, hey, I submitted this way back when. I haven't heard anything. What's going on? They go, well, did you send it in? I said, yeah, I sent it in electronically. I used the email on your form. And they said, what email did you use? And I told them. She goes, oh, we don't use that anymore. I'm thinking, well, maybe you should update your form. Anyway, I got it to the right person, and it still took forever, and another personal contact before Blue received his certificate for trialer. So yeah.
Thank
It's
you.
process.
Thank you. Because I have 2 dogs from 2 years ago I'm still waiting for, so that helps.
Yeah, that's the deal.
I didn't know I had to submit now. Thank you.
For those of you with female dogs, if your dog is in heat, please let the trial secretary or chairman know as soon as possible. You can still compete. You'll just be put to the end of the order. Even if you're in a brace, we'll work on finding you a brace mate that's a female. So if your dog's in heat, you can still compete her. Just make sure the trial people know so they can arrange the run orders correctly. And a note on run orders, they are not written in stone. We do our best to follow them, but things happen. If you're running multiple dogs in multiple fields, we get it. So, you know, do your best to follow along and follow the field marshal. But one thing is just be flexible. So those couple things.
Hey, Jeff, the other thing on a dog in season is you do not want to air your dog out in a public area where other dogs are going to be aired out.
Yes.
You know, keep your dog in season off to the side somewhere else. Those handlers that do run male dogs, some of those, it'll just blow their mind, and it's an unfair disadvantage. So common courtesy, keep your dogs in season isolated from the other dogs. And that is in the rule book.
And the rule book is online. So there's a PDF copy of the rule book on the UKC website. So read it. If you got questions, reach out. But it's good to know what you're being judged on. You know, we read it. We always have a copy of it with us. I have one when I judge, and I know Sherry does when she judges. So it may not be tattooed on our hand, but it's in the truck. So if there's an issue, we go back and read it. So
This is Chip again. I'll just add my last comment is that I've learned so much from just talking to the judges. Don't, it's been mentioned a couple of times, but don't be scared of the judges. You know, when you're out there, ask their opinion. You know, definitely talk to them, maybe that night chat with them a bit. But I mean, they're all volunteers. They all do this because they love the breed. And it's a way I've learned so much so fast.
What happens if I get lost, like moving between the fields or something, and I miss my dog's run because of that?
We'll try to fit you in as soon as you get there. It
Thank you.
happens. Yeah. That's where the flexibility comes in.
And if you're standing around at a field trial, most likely you'll get put to work. Someone that's running 2 or 3 dogs may hand you a dog and say, follow me. So don't be afraid. And sometimes that's the best way to learn is just kind of watching. So, and Patty, if you get lost between running dogs, we'll just be happy that you're running a dog.
Thank you. I'm always afraid I'll lose my dog. But I never do lose my dog.
No, they'll be fine. There's enough professionals around to chase them down.
All right, one question. Can you explain coulee?
So a coulee is a commanded reposition to locate the bird. In a nutshell. It does not mean that you can grab the dog's collar and run up with them. It is a command, it's a release, and they will do an intelligent reposition to pin that bird again.
Can it be a physical release, like a light tap on the head?
Absolutely.
So if you're, an instance is if your dog is on point and you're searching and searching and searching for a bird, we can have you, reposition your dog or coulee your dog so that it will walk up on the bird. And at that point, it should be walking up. If the bird flushes, and I'm going to say this from the open class standpoint, if the bird flushes, the dog should then stop again on the flush or stop before it's flushed, once it relocates on point. Peter, Sherry, correct me if I'm wrong on that one.
I found it in the rule book. The commanded approach or cooler is required to produce a game bird for the flush. The dog should do so without hesitation and easily on command. It is commanded and not self-initiated by the dog. If the bird lifts, and this isn't open, if the bird lifts, the dog must stop to flush and remain steady until released or shall be eliminated. So if the bird flushes on the coulee, your dog has to stop. And if it does not, then it's done.
Any other questions out there? We're coming up on an hour here, so if there aren't any other questions, feel free to reach out to me or Sherry or Pete. She put the names up. We'll help you the best you can, or point you somewhere we can get you the answers. So if that's all, then I'm going to stop recording, and if everyone wants to hang out after, feel free. Otherwise, thank you guys for participating. I'm also open to feedback on it, so let me know. Thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you for attending.
Jeff and Sherry, thank you for taking point and putting this on. Everybody else, we'd like some feedback, and if you enjoyed this, we'd like to do more presentations like this. Open to suggestions on topics and things like that, potentially monthly. So reach out to anybody on CEB-US, Jeff, Sherry, send us a message and let us know what you think.